I am trying to figure out how to get this filter off of me. Let's see. All right. I'm back. Great. Well, thanks for joining. Doodle with me. 20 minutes of idle chat and drawing. My guest tonight is Blair Bainbridge, and I'm excited to doodle with her, as I am excited to doodle with you. With you. So if you haven't been to Doodle with me before, you can listen, you can watch, you can always doodle along, whatever you wish on this Halloween weekend night. Let's get ourselves into a doodling mood. I'll get Blair in. And hello.
Hello.
Hi, we got to get our faces in here. Let's see.
Yeah, there we go. Hey,
Good to
Ryan.
see you.
Good to see you too. Loving the
Yeah.
cape.
Huh?
I love the cape.
Oh, the cape.
Yeah. Tell me
Yeah.
about it.
And it's reversible, so it's got silver underneath. That's my armpit. That's not very costumey, but you get the point. So you are from Craftwork.
Yeah.
Craftwork. Ah, very nice, Blair.
Thank you. It yeah. Pretty easy.
Well,
Pretty easy to do.
Happy Halloween.
You too. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, how do we know each other?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I guess 2008. I
Oh,
took a class from you at GW in DC. That was like a painting class.
it was a painting class, and you were an amazing student because you were painting with, um, with like butter and
Oh,
salt and brown sugar and flour. It was very psychologically
oh, I kind of forgot about
dynamic.
that whole yeah, I did a painting from like one of my grandmother's recipes or something.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
interesting. I liked it.
yeah. I truly
Did,
forgot about that.
do you have those around, or did they kind of fall apart?
I'm pretty sure they like yeah, probably disintegrated and molted at some point. I do remember this one painting because I took multiple classes with you, but I one of them was like an experimental like concepts class, and I remember this one really weird thing that I did where I was like I had I tried to paint like a baby in the womb or something. Do you remember this? It was so bad and weird and
Oh
disturbing.
yeah, I did give you guys kind of conceptual, like ideas that were hard to actually illustrate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember you being like, you gave me such like constructive feedback for something so bad that was like, yeah, it's giving me a lot of like abortion themes. Like, I was like, that's really generous. I don't know what I was doing with this, but yeah,
That's all right. I mean, I treat everything that people do seriously.
yeah. I really appreciated that as somebody in my young 20s.
Well, that's nice to hear. So you want to doodle?
Yeah, I want to do.
Okay, great. So I have to go over to my, I have to get myself over to,
What's this blue tape in the background?
oh, this?
Yeah, are you painting?
I'm getting ready for a guest.
Oh,
They're not expecting, no, I'm just joking. No, I'm gonna start painting in a different sort of way.
nice.
So I'm gonna paint more with sponges and stuff, so they drip a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I figured I didn't want to. There's some nice floors, so I didn't want to get them messy, and I don't know. Yeah, more like painting. I don't usually paint, but I'm kind of getting into color more, and I just decided, well, maybe it's time to start painting.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I have a whole list of characteristics that I've written down today that make me a bad artist.
Oh,
And so, no, it's not like bad artist.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
more
yeah.
like, it's
It could
like,
be a rebel artist.
yeah, well, I'm trying to, so I, instead of like beating myself up about certain things in my artistic practice, I'm trying to say, well, what's the positive, you know?
Yeah.
And how can I turn the fact that I don't finish things into something positive? And it might be that, well, maybe that's a quality in my work that I need to celebrate in some sort of way. And maybe that's like an aesthetic choice. Anyway, that's what I've been thinking. You know, I have a new thought every day. so, so are you a big fan of Halloween?
Historically, no, I would say, but I've come to appreciate it a lot more for the very use of like getting to experiment in becoming something that you're not normally on a day-to-day basis. I think
Right.
it's pretty cool. It's like a nice opportunity for all of us to play with that, and I don't know. Yeah,
It's
Halloween's kind of like I like being afraid too. I didn't used to value that as much as I do now.
You know what's really funny? It's more fun to have like watch movies or things that might scare me. But I was trying to tape some like little promos for our, you know, our time tonight,
Yeah,
and I was going into like dark halls and kind of trying to film that. And I was like,
yeah.
this is scaring. I was scaring myself, and I was like, I. I am way too susceptible to this kind of stuff. So I,
Yeah.
in terms of like scary movies, are you more of a slasher killer, psychopath fan, or are you more
Yeah.
of
Oh,
a,
I thought you were asking me personally, am I
oh,
a psychopath?
yeah, well, personally, yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking, so uh, this builds on how do we know each other when,
Yeah,
because I took your classes and,
yeah, yeah.
um, but then we reconnected when I lived in Tucson for a summer and
Mm-hmm.
moved there, and we were going to like the cult film series. What's that theater called?
Oh, the Loft Theater, right.
Loft. Yeah, at the Loft. Yeah, and I think that was just in my like horror reawakening because I had it's kind of embarrassing, but when I was a kid, I watched The Sixth Sense when I was like too young.
Oh, I love that show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I it like really affected me, and I had a really hard time watching scary things ever since because it I just felt like it was too real. So it wasn't until recently when I was like starting to understand horror as like some kind of parable or something, like a conceptually interesting thing to explore in terms of like trauma and interpersonal relationships and all of that, where I was like, oh, actually, horror is such a cool genre.
Yeah.
And I want to understand more about like how it helps me process like the everyday.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I think it was about when I was in Tucson when I started to get back or like started to embrace horror for what it could be. And I just remember, I don't know if you remember, Ryan, but we went to it was the August series of that year, and it was sorority slasher movies. You remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I do. It's actually a famous, one of the first. It's a famous B film. I can't remember exactly the title, although folks might know. I believe it. Deb. It was it Deborah? No, it was Margot Kidder's first film, and it was a Canadian film, if I
Like
remember.
Party?
Huh?
Killer Party?
Maybe Killer Party. It seemed to, um, yeah, sorority girls that were. This is not a great film to take you to. I don't know why we. But anyway, so sorority girls where there's like an obscene phone caller, is that right? That then becomes kind of like a killer.
Oh no, that was something different.
Oh, okay.
We
Oh,
watched
this is
the
something
one where it
different.
was
What?
like it was I know because I think that you had told me about this before we showed up. There was it was called Killer Party. It was in the 80s and it was originally one kind of movie that was like really big budget and they didn't have the budget to finish it, so they put it on pause for like a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
And like a new film crew came back to it under like new directing and they made a completely different ending. Um, and part of that involved like the killer was in this like 19th century diving suit that was like hundreds of pounds, like impossible to walk around in. Yeah, I don't know. I keep showing it to my friends, and I don't think that they think it's that cool, but it was it was a more fun night in that
It,
summer.
yeah, it's more that's like a fun bad film, right?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know.
it was terrible. So
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. I am a fan of bad films, although I've gone from that to just watching TikTok now, so that's not a very good
Mhm.
that's not a very that's not a very good trajectory.
Yeah.
But I'm joking. But
There's something about that that makes some kind of sense, though.
yeah, because they're like, TikTok is also low budget. Anyone can kind of make one. And there's a
Right.
sense in some of those B movies that, anyone can make them, that they're available. Um, they're not something that like, you know, is impossible to make. And so it's out of reach of people. Um,
Yeah.
and so, you're in awe of the money, so,
Yeah.
yeah. But, so in terms of like horror films or Halloween, do you like the more slashery Halloweens or do you like the more creepy supernatural Halloween?
I think I like the psychological horror. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I can get into slasher, but one of my favorite things that I've seen recently that really stuck with me, it spoke to me, was Raw. Have you watched that movie?
No, it's called Raw.
It's called Raw. It's really fucked up, Ryan.
Oh, uh-oh.
It's it's like a cannibalism
Oh,
movie
wow.
that is semi-recent. I think like 2016 maybe. It's
Uh-huh.
French and it's yeah, it's a lot about just kind of like desire and consumption. It's a very queer movie. I,
Is it a group of friends that decide to eat someone?
no, it's this
Oh,
so it's this girl that goes, she's like going to veterinary school in France, and her
uh-huh.
older sister is at the school, and she's a vegetarian, and she shows up to school. Both of her parents went to the school, to this very prestigious school, and she gets there, and there's like multiple hazing rituals, and one of them is that they have to eat like raw rabbit intestines or something.
Oh, all right. There you
And
go.
when she does that, she gets this like insatiable desire to eat raw meat that just like turns into needing to eat any kind of flesh around.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's like disgusting. So apparently, when they first screened this film at like the film festivals, audiences like fainted and vomited. Uh, And the same director just came out with a new movie that I haven't seen that apparently has been provoking the same results.
It's his specialty. That's his specialty, is making you
Yeah,
throw up. That's great.
exactly.
Can you get an Oscar for that is the question.
I don't know. Yeah, you at least international reputation. It's really good. I highly recommend it. It really affected me, and I think was one of the more like interesting takes that I've seen on kind of the boundary between desire and destruction, which I
Oh,
thought was
interesting.
yeah,
Sounds very very primal.
yeah, very very primal.
Yeah. I was reading an article about it's actually a zine that I got as a shout out to Swamp Cooler fashion show. So Swamp Cooler Fashions is I think that's what it's called. Someone correct me if I get that wrong, please. But Swamp Cooler Fashions is like a group of people, queer collective that does a lot of fundraising for you know, operations for people who want to transition their gender.
Yeah, yeah.
Gender reassignment. And I think that's what it's called. I apologize, folks, if I get that wrong. But anyway, the it was a great show. It was so joyful and so fun, and just everyone in the crowd was so supportive, and it was terrific. But there was also these anarchist kind of zines that you could buy and that would put out and would also fund different projects. And there was one whole thing about Halloween that really was interesting. It was super researched and tied to kind of like Halloween, the festival of Halloween, and how it evolved from like, basically the church took pagan festivals, and in
Yeah.
order to control
That moment where you're supposed to be testing the kind of, it's like boundary testing sort of what is unacceptable and allowing you to experience that.
yeah,
Right?
and so it was kind of like the church understood it as an outlet for
Exactly.
people, and
Right.
that they kind of made it connected it to more of a religious their religious holidays by keeping the date, which is a great PR tactic. Let's be honest, it's just PR. And uh, and what was interesting though is that it evolved over time to be something that was became more about controlling how young people, well, kind of the creation of the teenager coincided with Halloween, as well as
Like a
the
coming moment.
yeah, in which people, kids, especially young teens, were starting to, become gangs, especially in America, and the gangs were needing to have an outlet so that they didn't destroy property. So it's all about protecting people's property from vandalism and
Hmm.
rioting, and kind of creating this. So then that was when when Halloween started to get marketed more and more to children. It really was a way of kind of getting children out of the house and having that same fun, but in a more controlled sort of way instead of destroying people's property.
Right.
Um,
Not
so
actually.
so it
Yeah.
was it had its kind of heyday in the 50s when delinquency was really high, and that's when marketers started to push it out more.
Hmm.
And it's very interesting, the connection between kind of upheaval and then rituals and kind of like folk culture being able a way to control upheaval or give people outlets,
Like
like you said. Yeah.
yeah, a sense of being able to be deviant, but within the boundaries of what's acceptable.
Yeah, I really I love Halloween because of that. And I feel like there are people who live Halloween every day because
Right.
they not only find that Halloween is an outlet, but that they need, in order to feel more fulfilled, and they have to kind of transform their worlds,
Yeah.
with their imagination. And I feel like that is a great thing. I mean, I'm in some ways an artist because I don't go all the way with how I live my life. You know what
Right.
I mean? I
Yeah.
may, if
You're
if I were truly to embrace kind of my imagination, I would either create an alter ego or just a new ego and kind of live that way.
yeah.
But I don't know what that would be like. And I mean, I was so worried about getting a job, I kind of gave up on that pretty early. But
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I've been kind of like obsessed with what the horror of everything is, but there's also like this horror to being able to like truly pursue whatever, I don't know, whatever alternate imaginary that you think you could like that you,
Is the
you know,
horror yourself, or what do you mean? Is it the darker sides of yourself is the horror, or
I
and
think
how
the horror
far you
is
can
like
go, or
unlimited possibility.
huh?
Yeah, and so I think that's why these containers for horror are helpful because it's like, all right, I can understand the darkness in some kind of limited way that lets me know what its boundaries are.
Yeah,
So I think that's like why Halloween can be exciting, or like even the month of October, it can be
yeah,
exciting because you're allowed to think about the limit um, of what could be terrifying for you, but it still has its kind of like boundaries within your whole world.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I get what you're saying. It's kind of like a little bit like cosplay, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Cause, yeah.
It's like you can experience. See, I see it as experiencing sides of myself that I don't usually get to experience. But it could also be just be allowing myself to be in tune with things that I'm not always in tune with. Like
Yeah.
I tend to feel, I do tend to feel the fabric between kind of the living and the dead is thinner. I do feel that,
Yeah.
um, and I do feel like sounds and creaks and things are a little more amplified around this time. Like
Yeah.
like something is trying to get my attention that's not usually getting my attention, and
Yeah.
I don't always
Emotionally resonant
want
for
it.
you.
Huh?
It's like more emotionally resonant for you than it would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I think if I was like that all the time, it'd be hard to function. So
It's very scary. I think. I don't know.
I mean, there's people who like, you know, it's kind of like ayahuasca. All these folks that are going off and doing their ayahuasca trips, and then
Yeah.
like it's like riding, being a biker on the weekend. It's an adventure, but you get to come back into your life, and
Exactly. You have to know that there's like a return from
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah. I think that sometimes is what's scary about depression or mania or things like that. Is like sometimes you're like, oh, is this gonna stick?
Right. The lack of knowing whether there is a return or this is like your new normal, which could be like the horror of the pandemic.
Right, the new normal. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kept on trying to figure out like what Halloween kind of scary films would I show my students, and like everything I was picking was kind of like about an epidemic or the plague or
Well,
something. Then you realize, oh my God, there's probably been plagues all the time. The history is filled with disaster.
well, it's also hard to be scared when your present is deeply horrifying. And I think there's a way that that's why this Halloween is very interesting for me because I'm wondering whether I want to be pacified or I want to imagine that there could be something scarier than the reality that I'm living. So it's like either I want to watch like 101 Dalmatians or I want to watch the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
You're right, though. It's kind of like when reality is so scary, it's like how much more do you need? But I think
Yeah.
there's a hominess for me to like. I've been watching a lot of Universal Studios horror films like Dracula, Frankenstein,
Mm-hmm.
Wolfman. I mean, I
Oh,
do fall asleep a lot when I watch them because they're very slow.
yeah, right.
But I also kind of love them. There's something very soothing. I like the crackling sound, track and the old-fashioned glamour because they're very glamorous films in their
Yeah.
own way. I mean, you get all those people, all those Europeans who have immigrated to America who were doing amazing lighting and German film or that are now like, you know, doing stuff in Hollywood at the time. So it's like the craft is always really good with those films. But
Right.
I love how I'm a big fan of lighting, and I love how people are lit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's very soothing to me. It's very peaceful. An interesting thing happened to me when I was trying to film, you know, one of the promos, which was that I was going down the stairs, and as I was going down the stairs, I kind of like was starting to freak out because it's a basement I don't usually go into.
In
And
your
so
own.
I was, you know, just a little like, oh, this is fun. And then, like you said, it's like I reached my limit a little bit. Like, oh, like
Yeah.
what if, what if, what if,
It
what if?
isn't your own reality. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Right.
then it was like, okay, is it just me freaking myself out with my
Yeah.
imagination, or is something truly down there, or is it both?
Right.
You know. So then I
Yeah.
switched on the lights and went down a little further down the stairs, and I you know, uh, got into an area where it was darker and darker and darker doorways, and then all of a sudden, just filming in pitch dark, I was like,
Mhm.
you know, okay, I've had enough. And then I kind of went back up the stairs very quickly and turned off the
Uh-huh.
lights. And then I kind of went through the door that I was. This is at my studio, so I'm actually here right now talking about
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
And uh, but I was like, uh, I was looking at the footage afterwards, which is a great sense of control. Like I've captured an image, I'm crafting an image, I'm in control of this image of, you know, what I was
Yeah.
experiencing. It's okay.
But
And
is
then
your
as I,
that?
huh?
Well, yeah, no, I think that's interesting that like you recognize yourself as contributing to your own like
Oh, of course. Yeah,
freak.
yeah. It's all my perception. So
Right.
I, so, so I was looking at the footage, and it was getting closer and closer to the darkness. And then at some point when I was filming, and it was in the darkness, completely dark, and I
Hmm.
was listening to the sound and I was looking at the dark, I was like, oh my God, I was scared of something that actually was incredibly soothing, that there was something just soothing and peaceful in this darkness. And I was kind of like, and that's what I was scared of? The void of not being able to see anything was actually kind of a relief.
Right.
It was so interesting to me. And I was
That,
like, oh, that's taking me someplace very different than where I thought I was going. So I didn't
yeah.
use it because it wasn't standardly scary. It was more like, oh, it's just peaceful.
Yeah, that is really unexpected. There's something really comforting to me in that
Yeah,
idea that we could push through the thing that scares us the most to find like a little sense of relief.
yeah. Because in
Yeah.
some ways, maybe things are so scary now that our imagination can take us to places that are more soothing because we're not finding them in life, or we're able to find them in life in places we didn't expect before. Yeah, it's very,
I
very
like that as
interesting.
the like a possible antidote to the like idea that you were talking about earlier of being scared in the moment of like when you realize like a that kind of like mania or depression could lead you like you're like, oh, am I gonna fall into this forever? And I like the idea that kind of like a soothing thought and the fear of that is that the other side of that is something comforting. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense, but that like that is it's a danger, but there's also something there's another possibility in being able to sit with something that's really sad.
yeah. I think so. I also remember I was there was a small child I was babysitting, and when I was living in LA, and some friends of mine were raising their children using something called the Rye method, which is um, it's a method for raising kids that is kind of is is about respecting their boundaries as well as kind of keeping them in the loop in terms of how they're treated, and so kind of verbally telling them things. But part of it was also that when the child is going to bed, you know, there's a point where they basically, if they cry at some point, you can't keep going back in.
Yeah,
You
you
have
felt
to just let them cry, which was,
yeah,
and so, I can imagine them in the dark bedroom crying and crying and crying, and I would have to just ignore them. It was
yeah,
so hard. But then what happens is by doing that, they actually learn how to self-sufficiently lull themselves to sleep. They learn how to calm themselves and
right.
are able to help themselves find like a peacefulness or sleep.
Yeah,
So
you kind of realize by like doing that, even though it's hard for you, you're setting them up for success later in difficult moments in their life.
yeah, so really getting the shit scared out of yourself in the long run has a silver lining.
I guess so. Yeah, maybe only when you're a kid, though. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I think yeah, I think it's all real, and at the same time, there's a little bit of theater too. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, well, we went off, but that was fun.
that was really
When I say,
fun.
yeah,
I'm
when I
so nervous.
say,
I have
huh?
so much charcoal all over my hands.
Oh, I haven't seen. Can I? Well, if you want to, go ahead and show me. It's all right.
I
Uh,
just
oh,
little moody. What do you have for it?
yeah, yeah. It's kind of orby. We're both
Yeah,
we're both orbing out. I like
yeah,
it. Yeah.
definitely circular motions on both sides.
Let me turn around. Oops, I almost put the filter back on. Um, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
That was so
you. The
nice. And
pleasure. Always love
yeah,
talking to you. I
I
miss
love
you.
it. Yeah, good to see you too. And thanks for your time and just hanging out with me. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you've never experienced Doodle with me before, Doodle with me is every Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then the rest of those standard times I would like you to figure out by Googling it or something. But
There's only one or two. You'll figure it out.
and so Doodle with me, it's usually only 20 minutes. We went over a little tonight, but it was a pleasure to do so. And
Yeah.
we invite you to doodle with us and to interact with each other in the comments and to make this time as unproductive but as fun as possible, because we can make our own fun. We don't need no Hollywood. So
Yeah.
great. Thanks a lot, Blair. And
Thank you, Megan.
have a great Halloween weekend,
You
everybody.
too. Hope you get a little scared, you know?
I can do it to myself anytime. Right after I switch this off, honey, I'm going to be scaring myself again. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.